other day when I was coming, somebody stopped me and on a scooty and said, "Can I have your mobile phone?" I just gave it, and then I realized whether I should actually have trusted that person, because for the next 2 days I did not use my bank account because I thought maybe some sort of a hacking. So I was really worried whether I should have trusted or not trusted. So the word trust is becoming something which is really difficult to understand. And what we thought we can try talk to all of you is because, on the other hand, that was a person who was a stranger. But in an organization, what do we really mean by the word we trust our team? Because if I talk about trust, it's something that is important. But where does the line draw between trusting a person? Is it there is a misuse, or is it are they going to take advantage? So maybe I thought maybe you can just open it up to all of you and see how do you really look at that word trust as an employee, as your team member, not as an outsider. Because fine, today it's difficult to trust everybody and all, but the persons whom we are working with. So how do we really look at that word trust? So maybe from your own experiences and from your own thoughts, what do you mean by the word we trust our teams? So maybe we could go each one, maybe you could try to take a minute or so to explain from your own experiences. And then maybe we can look at further in terms of how do you develop.
When I hear this word trust, and particularly you mentioned trusting in your team, very often we use this sentence in the corporate context, but for me, this particular sentence has a duality. So when I say I trust my teams, basically it has two, I would say, inseparable parts. One is that I'm trusting my team that they are skillful, they'll take their decision in a rightful way, and I trust that their decisions will be right. So that is only the first part of this word, that I trust my team. But often we ignore the second part, and particularly at the leadership level, that as much as we trust our team, we have to trust ourselves that if they do anything wrong, I should be able to make that up. So if I don't have that trust, that if they do anything wrong, if they don't get it the way I expected them to get, and I'm not able to absorb that kind of mistake, or if I'm not able to absorb the consequences of their wrong decisions, then I believe I will come up with some, 2, 3 approval workflows, and I'll say that I trust you, but you'll have to follow these many approval workflows. So I believe for me, this whole concept has duality, and one aspect is often ignored.
It's a word that I feel is important in the context of what we all do, but I also feel it's also overloaded and overused in the context of it. And when I think of trust, I think it's a statement of intent, and especially as leaders, it shows up every day in the way you operate with your peers, with your team, especially. And it's a statement of intent because it says, I have confidence in what we are doing collectively, right? I think it's less to do with hierarchy, more to do with the fact that, you afford people the autonomy, the ability to use their judgment. I think that's where trust really plays a very big role, right? I think as leaders, you hire smart people because you want their point of view, that you want their opinion. And so when we think about trusting someone, it's not about make or checker. It's really about saying, I trust you have the skills to do this. I trust the fact that even if we get it wrong, there's a way to get back from it. And for me, I think it's more free flowing than it is a definition of hey, listen, only if I trust you will you be able to do something. I think we that's why I say it's overloaded, because trust is relative, and how much or how little you trust is just completely like it's not, you can't really put a measure to it. I think there are things that build trust and there are things that erode trust, but you're never in a black and white ecosystem, in my opinion.
Well, I would call myself, usually a very trusting person. So whether it is at work, outside work, at home, in general, on the roads with strangers, I think my perception starts with trust. So if I have hired somebody at work, I would start with that trust, but it would not be blind trust. It has to be earned over time, or it has to be retained over time. uh, I would generally not micromanage people that I've trusted and hired for a specific role. But, as we continue to evaluate the outcomes, we get to see the insights, I think that degree of trust keeps going up and keeps going down. So, you learn your lessons every day. Um, and it has very rarely happened that, I've landed in a soup where, I think it's also your gut feeling, the sixth sense, whether, you're trusting the right person, not trusting the right person with a certain role or responsibility. But I think overall, it is not something, that you do blindly. It is something that you have to constantly evaluate and for you to succeed. And if not, if you feel that there are changes to the way you're trusting somebody, if the deliverables are not up to the mark, if the roles and responsibilities, or even in general, there are behavioral issues with somebody, how do you as a leader then deal with it more tactfully and then give that person another opportunity to win the trust back or to lose it completely? So I think it's an ongoing process.
If I can start on a lighter note, I am generally a distrusting person. That's the nature of my profession. That's the nature of my profession. Yeah. Anybody comes in, I did no wrong. Of course, I know. So, but yeah, on a serious note, I think trust is something on the same theme as what Pankaj mentioned. It's a two-way street. If I have to be able to delegate freely and with confidence to my team, I need to be sure I've recruited well, trained them well, and I've seen them deliver consistently to the requirements. At the same time, I said two-way because if I have that trust on my team, if I need that, they need to have the faith in me that, well, I will cover up for them if the need so arises. So it has to be two-way, otherwise it just doesn't work. You cannot expect your team to be loyal to you, trusting you, and you don't trust them and you don't give them enough credit. It has to be shared.
Harry said, I do come from the finance domain, and finance is again, which starts with what could go wrong, whether to trust or not. So, but for me, the trust is where, you know, uh, your team is able to trust you more than you are able to trust your team, in a sense that you will always have their back when something goes wrong. Of course, you know, the caliber, the training, right hiring, all that is a pre-step before you start trusting someone. But the real trust in the corporate, in the organizations, is where the teams trust more the leadership than the leadership trusting the team. Because making teams trustworthy is the role of the leaders, actually. So that's my.
So I must also confess, being a student of human resource, while I should understand trust, I am the most confused about trust. Okay. So I have certain realms of how I see trust. One realm is where I see it as an emotion. It is given. I trust my wife. I trust my daughter. I trust my dog. I think that is separate from the trust that I would have with employees, strangers, professionals, peers, colleagues. And for me, that is maybe an overused word is trust. Do I find them dependable? Yes. Do I find them reliable? Yes. So I would define that as more reliable and dependable. Therefore, I have an equation with them. I don't know whether to call it trust. So I know whether if you look at values and, having worked with Tatas and trust go hand in hand. And like you said, ma'am, I think it has to be earned. It is just not, one can be trusting, which is a nature, but trust to manifest itself takes a lot of effort, a lot of time before you can say that, yes, this is trustworthy. You still don't use trust. You say trustworthy, which means you're not in the absolute realm of trust. But the best definition that I've heard about trust is, and it's slightly more personal, to say when I can share my vulnerabilities with the other.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is trusting.
That is trust.
So when I can share openly my vulnerability, my weaknesses, that is trusting. And that slightly resonated with me on what is trust. And I know behavioral students have even found a mathematical equation to how define trust. You would see in the books. But I start and end with saying that I'm confused, but I use trust in two realms: at a personal level, which is given, because you start a relationship with your daughter on trust. There's no earning it, right? It started unless she breaks it. And it takes a lot of breaking before I can say you've broken my trust. On the other hand, with an employee, as we see the organizations where employees keep moving, right? You don't work, gone are the days where you work for like 30 years, sir did. So trust is slightly more transition. It's like I find the guy dependable. I find the guy reliable. I find the product reliable. But I don't know whether to call it trust. So rest my case on trust there.
So trust is a very small word with the number of word count that we have, but it's a very powerful word as well. And the beauty with this word is it becomes very real, very fast. And when the situation gets going difficult, so it becomes real very quickly. As a leader, I always believe that trust is about how decisions are being taken when you are not in the room. It's not all just about lack of sight in terms of what team is doing. It's always about how they are behaving when you are not part of those decision making. Apart from that, I'll say it's more on to that you should act like a guiding compass. You let your team know that you are always there to support them, to help them. Let them figure out the way how they want to behave, how they want to operate in. And then when something breaks, you should always come as a cushion net. That's what I believe in as a trust in leadership.
Yeah, I've got a couple of stories, short stories on trust. And the first one is when I went, so I spent 24 years in PepsiCo, and my first stint outside was with a team where there was somebody from Turkey, somebody from Lebanon, somebody from Guatemala, somebody from Colombia, somebody from China, somebody from UK, no Indians. So for the first 6 months, I struggled because my Indian way of doing things just fell flat. And what was missing was trust. And then I realized the problem was not with my environment, but the problem was with me. And therefore, I was expecting the situation and the circumstance and the environment to change and others to change, whereas I needed to adapt to my environment. And as I started doing that, I realized trust being built. And then, as Stephen Covey says, things happen at the speed of trust. It's such a powerful thing. And I have seen in typically, and all of you would have seen, small problems and people are sending emails, 50 emails going back and forth and you're copied on each one of them. It's like sitting in Wimbledon and watching a tennis match going on. And then two people with very high trust pick up the phone and the thing is. I went to Vietnam, and typically the way we are very proud of our British heritage, and we have this language legacy that the Brits gave us. So I used to speak very fast and, use long emails and things like that. And nobody understood anything because the team was Vietnamese and this was a joint venture with Suntory, a Japanese company. And one day my boss came and rapped me on my knuckles and said, "What the hell are you doing? Right? You are diluting trust and demoralizing everybody. Why don't you talk slow?" And that was like, enlightenment for me. And I realized again, I have a trust deficit situation. So I started speaking slowly and I started asking, did you understand what we have said? Because they were translating my English into Vietnamese or Japanese, translating the answer from their language back to English and then answer. And I tried learning Vietnamese for 6 months and I realized impossible. It's a tonal language. The language is English, but there are 6 tones for the same word. If I can't understand and I can't learn, I can't expect them to. So things like adaptability and things like listening are so powerful and helps build trust. But this is, I think, the magic potion for making things happen in the corporate world. And I've seen it everywhere in the world.